Hey guys, what's up? It's Ripe again. In today's video, my entitled dad tries to steal my inherited property after my grandparents passed away. He forged signatures on legal documents to steal my land. Here is what happened. Let's dive right into the stories. So my dad was never really present in my life, or any of my siblings for that matter. Even when him and my mom were still together, my mom was the one that attended all the school events, packed all the lunches and organized all of the family trips. As bad as it might sound, I'm pretty thankful that my mom left my father. She knew eventually that we were just better off without him. It is shocking too, because my dad's side of the family, minus my dad of course, is actually wonderful. When my parents split up, his parents still stayed connected with my mom and even offered to help her budget and buy groceries after it was clear that my father was not going to help with the kids at all. Just for the record, there are 4 of us, 2 boys, my brother and I, and 2 sisters. I can recall after my parents divorcing that I still loved going over to my grandparents' house from my dad's side. As a matter of fact, in our teenage years they actually moved so that they could be closer to my mom. They were absolutely wonderful and a big part of our childhood, no matter what our situation was like with their son. That is why when they passed away, we were extremely shocked that my dad got their house. You will definitely want to stay tuned for this story because my dad did not actually get the house. However, at first, he managed to get the house. Are you lost yet? Don't worry. I'll explain. Let me start by saying that we were devastated when my grandpa and grandma passed away. Unfortunately, they passed away at the hands of a drunk driver. Both of them were in their 80s, but both extremely healthy. As a matter of fact, we always joked around that my grandma would outlive all of us, but regardless, I knew that I wanted to take care of that house after they had passed away. It was not even a big or fancy house or anything like that, but it was filled with so much love and memories. It was practically our second childhood home. I never want to sound entitled, and it was not even necessarily about having a free place to live in or having something to sell or anything like that. We just genuinely wanted to preserve and take care of the house. After all, it was one of the only safe spaces in our childhood. I would also like to mention that prior to this, I had not seen my dad in 4 years. I believe my older sister had seen him about 2 years prior, but regardless, none of us had seen him in quite a while. There was no reason to. There was no relationship there, and I know that his relationship with my grandparents was not the best either. Especially after how he treated her and us after they got divorced. So imagine our shock when we got told that in the will, my grandparents left him the house. Even my mom was shocked. I had so much doubt and grieving feelings during this time that I eventually came to the conclusion that maybe my siblings and I were feeling entitled after all. I mean, regardless of how we felt about our own father, which was their child and they brought him into this world and raised him, I have often heard that no matter which path a child chooses in life, their parents will always love them. Maybe it was a situation like that, I really did not know. Regardless, I just wanted to be there for my siblings and my mom, not so much my dad, to be honest. But maybe that was just me being petty. It was inevitable that we would see him during this time. I mean, his mom just passed away and he did live in the same town as us, and of course we saw him at the funeral. And of course he asked us to help him clean out the house of his parents' things. If we are being honest, I really did not want to at first. I know that sounds bad, but I just really cannot stand my dad. But nonetheless, I wanted to act in honor of my grandparents, so I, along with my siblings, agreed. Plus, I figured if there were any memorable or sentimental items found in the house, we could help them. For example, my grandpa had this collector's edition of Ford Caravan car model. To some it was silly, but he loved that thing and most of his car memorabilia. Anyways, we agreed to help and soon enough the cleaning out of the house started. And do you know what? Maybe it was a good thing that we agreed to help clean the house because we did find some especially important stuff, including documents and a will that was just dated 3 months prior to my grandparents' death that stated her 4 grandchildren were supposed to get the house. I immediately hid the document folder in my backpack and did not say anything to my father about it. Had he forged a fake will? Was there a will that was actually updated with my dad's name on it? Regardless, this one was dated 3 months prior to their death, so it had to be pretty recent. Afterwards that day, all of us went over to my mom's house for dinner and I showed them what I found. My brother immediately said that he knew something was fishy since the beginning. My older sister piped in and said that dad was involved in all sorts of unsure stuff because she overheard him on the phone talking to someone about forging a signature and paying cash under the table. So instead of freaking out with my dad, we decided to get lawyers involved. Apparently, not only did my dad get his hands on the will first, but he signed an inter-family transfer and dissolution agreement to legally transfer the house to his name. Except it was not legal because the signatures that were on the documents were forged by my father. And what is even worse is that a notary said that they witnessed us doing this when we obviously didn't. Not only was he guilty of forgery, but my sister turned in a recording of him telling someone to pay under the table on the phone together with some other evidence to the IRS. They were delighted to hear this and started an investigation, which ended with him getting in trouble due to tax evasion. Apparently he was running an illegal business so that he did not have to pay taxes or register his business. Some people just never learn. But you will be happy to know that we got the house back. My sister and I are actually living in it right now. We finished going through my grandparents' stuff and find quite a few items we kept. We even found a card my grandma had written to my mom when she married their son. I guess everything does happen for a reason. The next one is titled, Karen Wants a Free Computer. First off, this story happened to me about a week ago. I was upgrading my PC and everything ran perfectly. I changed the motherboard and the CPU for those who are asking to a high-end one. After I sorted out the old parts, I thought it would be nice to give those parts to someone who could not afford them. About 560 euros or dollars for the old CPU and motherboard. I made an ad on Facebook and set the price to $0 or euros. Of course, I got a lot of responses and most of them are just, could you deliver today? And why are you giving away parts? After about an hour of reading the responses, I found someone that I thought would enjoy the parts. I chatted a bit and drove 20 kilometers, around 12.5 miles, to their home and delivered the parts and had the following conversation. Hey, this is OP. I'm here because of the parts that I didn't need anymore. Entitled person, hi OP, I'll be down in 10 minutes with EK. Me in my head, what the actual F? I waited a bit and rang the bell again. Hi EP, are you ready to pick up the parts on your front door? EP screaming, yes. I'll be down in a minute. Me in my head, I guess this was not a good choice, but whatever. 2 minutes later the EP and the EK showed up at their front door. EK, hello OP, sorry that you had to wait that long, but I was playing a video game and I was not finished yet. Me, no worries, here are your parts. EP, thanks OP, but why did you even give us these parts in the first place? Are they stolen? Me, of course not, I was upgrading my PC and these are the old parts. Oh, I see, but why did you give us the old parts? Because the new parts are worth about $1,000 retail and I don't have the money to give away such high-priced items. Oh, but EK would enjoy the other parts much more. Me, oh of course EP, I will get them for you, in a sarcastic voice. Just hand me over my old parts and I'll be back soon. EP, yeah, that's the attitude I was hoping for. Like, what the hell, lady? The EP hands over my parts again and I leave and had decided that I would never ever sell parts for free again. Bonus, EP tried to sue me and called the police on me because I stole my parts back from them and the conversation was kind of funny. The doorbell rings. Police, this is the local PD. Is OP home? Me, yes of course, I'll be up, basement, in a minute. Hello, I'm Police Officer 1, are you OP? Yes. We got a complaint that you stole from EP, is that true? Nope. Repeated the same story as written before, police number 1. Oh, I see. Do you have any receipts for these parts? Me, of course I do. Me searching for the receipts and showing them to the police, police number 1. Oh, thank you very much. Would you like us to write a complaint in your behalf? Me, that would be perfect. Then there was some paperwork to fill out and the EP got a ticket for abusing the local police. And the next one is titled, Just Doing What My Boss Wanted. I used to run a medium-ish sized, aka 40 rooms hotel down in Florida for a couple of years not that long ago. The hotel was a couple of old neighboring beach apart motels bought by a foreign investor and then extensively renovated into a single modern boutique hotel. The location was amazing for this type of business. Before the pandemic, it was indeed a prime piece of property. The property manager that ran it at the time had built the hotel up with the idea of a place people would be really happy to return to. Especially considering that the person who had run the place at first, an ex-girlfriend of the owner, had chased all the old motel guests off. Apparently, and I quote one of the former guests here, "We don't want your kind here," she told people, meaning older generation, mainly middle-class Americans from the Midwest spending their family vacations down in Florida every year for decades. Also backtracking a bit to a point rather important for the story, the owner is not a nice person. Nor had he ever worked in or had run the hospitality business. His main line of business is simply retail. Abroad, very much so. And also, he is a self-absorbed, entitled narcissist with an attitude, He had constantly meddled, making incredibly foolish or downright harmful decisions during the renovation and then forcing the property manager to carry them out. He was smart and competent enough to usually find a workaround, but sometimes he insisted further. Things were not smooth. So, fast forward to me starting to run the actual hotel part of the business, which at first the owner had not meddled in that much. Our main focus groups at the time had been the cruise ship crowd, regular vacation goers, the conferences nearby, and finally the annual events, multiple music festivals, holidays, as well as, drumroll, the International Boat Show. The last one being a week-long affair of yacht building companies selling their boats to rich folks, 10 minutes walk from our hotel. The place I managed was a bit too low-key for the rich crowd, but guess where all those yacht building companies wanted a room to place all their staff at? We had 40 of them, with multiple beds and full kitchens, and we had built the place up with regular guests in mind, including the festival goers and the yachtsmen, especially the yachtsmen. This meant discounts, free upgrades, personalized approach, regular touch-ups, and even occasional barbecue parties. I was on the first-name basis with quite a few boat building managers, as well as boat captains, because when a boat is sold they often stay around, get repaired, and the crew has to stay somewhere. And also our little place was known in the circles as a good place for them. I had made it my goal to make it attractive for the target audiences. And in some of them everyone knew each other and word got around. I'm a firm believer in the hospitality business being run with the client in mind, not the profit. So we had an amazing year of building up connections and making the place really nice to a few very specific circles, and then the pandemic hit. The hotel was almost empty for half a year, had to furlough most of our staff for a while. Eventually, the pandemic was sort of forgotten about, at least in Florida. Cruise ships had not come back, but the regular vacation goers had en masse. We got very busy very fast, however the owner was not thrilled with me hiring a new front desk receptionist. Why bother if I myself could do this job as well, right? Make housekeepers, we had 2 of them total for the entire place, do laundry as well. Get the property manager do accounting too, at the same time the owner had bought a yacht. And he did it just because and attempted to make our property manager run the boat as well. So after a few more months of struggle, she had finally had enough and had quit. Good for her. We are still friends even today. The owner replaced the property manager with his daughter. Like father, like daughter, exactly the same type, however in their country manager is manager. They don't get the difference between a property manager, who does the building or the property side of things, and a business manager who does the business in that building. She then immediately decided that her job was to run the hotel and my job was to do what I am told. And the first thing they do, the father and the daughter, is to look at the boat show just 1 month ahead, as well as the festive season a couple of months later. And they had a brilliant idea of making more money. After all, why had we sold all the rooms that cheap? Triple rates for the boat show, we could easily make twice as much, right? And why offer free parking when no one around does that? Not like it's a selling point, right? So they tell me to change the room rates on existing reservations. And also they start charging for the parking on reservations that were made with the free parking listed. And above all, charge more for the boat show, on the rooms that had been sold a year ago, mostly face to face when people were checking out after the last show. And it was apparently up to me to call them and let them know that we had raised the rates by 50%. Oh, and that the parking for the show is now $100 a day per vehicle. I wasn't happy with the idea, to say the least. For whatever reason, I had assumed that this is not how things are done in the US. Even down in Florida, despite the infamous Florida man. Nor I felt comfortable calling people, most of whom I knew, and tell them this banger of an idea. So I had fought against this decision as hard as I could. I came up with various reasons as to why we should not do it. I even pointed out how we run the place, argued the point of the reputation. The owner had not listened but said, "I hear you, but trust my business acumen. After all, I had made millions." The daughter had listened to me very carefully though. Her reply was, "Your direct superior had decided and given you instructions. It's not your place to think and question things. Just call them all and explain everything. That's your job." So a little bit of malicious compliance then. I called our guests and not just the boat people. I called most regulars of ours. It took a while. And I explained what was happening. I told them the truth. how things are run now, what new ideas are there, etc. I also told them that I was very much against these new decisions and that I probably won't be there for long. Most of them thanked me for the information and said they will be in touch. A few local yardsmen asked if they could come in to discuss some things. In the end, the boat people were forced to pay extra. It's impossible to find a good property at any price range close to the boat show location just a month before the show itself. The local ones who came in and met with the owner and his daughter got a great deal of free parking after the price adjustment. I struggled to keep a professional face though. However, when I met them on my own after their talk with the owner, or when I talked with the other regulars over the phone, almost all of them thanked me for my efforts and told me they will not be back. Neither would anyone they know. Also, if I would go to a new place, would I please let them know so they would go there too? Well, that very week I gave the owner's daughter my notice. I left just before the show began, letting her be the one dealing with the crap storm. Since she insisted on being the boss so much, from what I hear, she had not managed at all. Right now, the place is run by a shady management company that just doesn't care, with the daughter supposedly running the front desk. No one is answering any calls. Or checking emails for that matter. The reviews plummeted. In addition, they had not even renewed their licenses or paid Booking.com and Expedia fees. They are now threatening legal action, and apparently the owner and his daughter blame me and the property manager for everything. Since it is our leaving that screwed them over, but whatever. And yeah, Ripe Stars, I would say that OP definitely dodged a bullet here by quitting this awful job, especially with these crazy managers and bosses. If you have ever been in a situation where you have been tormented by an awful boss or manager or something at your own workplace, then I would love to hear your story in the comments, and if you have a longer story, feel free to post it on r/ripe stories on Reddit, where you can post your own stories. The next one is titled, "Steal from me once? Fine. Steal from me twice or more? Get obliterated." In a prior post in a different subreddit, I asked if I was the bad guy for wanting to call the police on my nephews for stealing from me. And the overwhelming support I got made me realize that standing my ground was the best thing for me to do. About midway last week, when I came home from work, I noticed my shed door was open and the padlock that I used to keep it shut was broken. And I had a lot of bags full of soda cans in there. I and my friends tend to drink a lot of soda, so I've built up a lot of cans over the course of about a year. I was going to cash these cans in at the bottle drop soon because I like big payouts. It is 10 cents a can where I live after all, but there was more than just my bags of cans missing from the shed too. They took my gardening shears, a steel rake, 2 shovels, one of them being one of those folding camping ones, a full 2-gallon gas can, a cheap power drill I got for like $5 used, an electric hedge trimmer, and a small electric chainsaw that was also used, and a machete. They did not touch the lawnmower, weed whacker extension cords or the old radio I had in there. No idea why they took what they did, but I guess they figured they could resell them or something. I checked my camera footage and there was my 3 nephews, ages 16, 15, 14, breaking into my shed with one of their dad's large claw hammers. I recognized the hammer because it is bright yellow and black and their dad has a bunch of them. It only took them a few hits to smash that cheap lock, and after they first broke into my shed, they took what they could by hand. And then they came back with some shopping carts that I'm guessing they also stole. But it took them a few trips to get all of the cans, and they did not bother to even try and close the door when they were done. And by the way guys, that is a pretty crappy thing to steal, I gotta say. Those are some environmental friendly thieves, at least if they turn the cans in at the supermarket. Anyway, my sister and brother-in-law first denied their kids stole anything from me, so I went to their house and showed them the security footage from my cameras. I had not told them that I had cameras installed, and the reason I had the cameras put in was because of prior thefts by my nephews. It started with food and snacks and then moved on to DVDs and video games, and then pretty much anything they could smuggle out after that. And anytime I made them return stuff they had stolen from me, I was treated like the bad guy and then got the fakest apologies I've ever heard. And they never got in much trouble from their parents either. The final straw happened last year when my nephews broke into my house and stole 3 6-packs of my favorite blood orange beer from my fridge. They used my hidden spare key to get in and also took a huge dump in one of my bathrooms, and not only did not flush, but also peed all over the floor. And I'm pretty sure it was intentional. The beer they stole was hidden in one of their bedrooms when I confronted my sister and brother-in-law about my nephew stealing it, and I was basically given an equivalent to "boys will be boys" when I wanted them punished. So I had the cameras put in and told no one, which was a smart move. When my sister and brother-in-law saw the camera footage of my nephew stealing from me, they seemed furious. But they were actually madder that their boys skipped school to steal from me. They had spent all day making repeated trips to the bottle drop and cashing the cans by machine. The bottle drop also pays by machine, so they just kept bringing the cans in till they cashed them all. And then they bought video games and junk food with the money. Said money actually amounted to nearly $200, and with that and the destroyed padlock, I told my sister and brother-in-law that they now owed me $200. My sister and brother-in-law went from being angry at their kids to making excuses for them, and then being angry at me for wanting that money back when I know they have 3 kids and a mortgage. I said it was either that or I go to the police and press charges. They told me to get out, and I said they have 2 days to decide how to pay me back before I go to the cops. I got back everything else my nephew stole, machete and gas can included. Though they had already used the gas for something, but over the next couple of days my sister and brother-in-law were blowing up my phone with a ton of messages. Both verbal and text. At first they were calling me heartless because it was right after the holidays and they have 3 kids and a mortgage. Then they started gaslighting me, then even threatening me, and all of this would go in a repeating cycle. My nephews chimed in from another cell phone and were sending me lots of messages of their own, which were more fake apologies and gaslighting. My eldest nephew even sent me a picture of himself holding a soda can and giving me the middle finger. I guess they were not taking my threats of going to the police seriously because family. When I last spoke with my sister and brother-in-law, they refused to negotiate any sort of method of repayment for what my nephews did, even when I suggested they just sell the video games that were purchased with the money from the cans. Then they had the audacity to say I had actually tempted my nephews by having the cans in my shed to begin with. Oh yes, I'm the devil's snake that tempted my nephews with a shed full of cans that just screamed, "Money, money, money!" So that was it. I went to the police station that morning and filed the report, gave them a copy of the video footage of my nephew stealing from my shed, and I gave them the broken lock they smashed. I showed them all of the text which was screenshotted and also given as evidence. Hell, I even gave them a copy of the photo my eldest nephew sent me of him flipping me off. I did tell police that I found it worrisome that my nephews had taken the machete, but they classified it as a tool, especially since they took a lot of other actual tools, so fair enough on that I suppose. But my nephews were indeed arrested on Saturday. Police came to their house and my sister and brother-in-law were forced to let them in because they had a warrant. Apparently all 3 of my nephews went from being cocky little pieces of work to crying little babies when they were being put in handcuffs. I know this because a neighbor I'm acquainted with that's sort of friends with my sister was there to see it. And shortly after the arrest, my sister and brother-in-law were blowing up my phone again. They were not able to get their kids out of jail till Monday morning, and now the boys are being charged with larceny, willful destruction of property and vandalism, and harassment. The police took this whole case pretty seriously, as there has been complaints about my nephews for some time. But nothing was proven until now. The past few months, bags of cans have actually been going missing all over the area. Don't know if it was my nephews or not, but they are likely suspects. And with word spreading of their arrest, let's hope other neighbors with security cameras come forward with more footage. My sister and brother-in-law showed up at my house too. I refused to open the door and told them that this all happened because they are enablers who refuse to hold their kids accountable for their actions. That made them just scream and pound on my door more till I threatened to call police on them too. And since I have done it already, they know I mean it now. So they left without any more trouble, but they went back to blowing up my phone. I did not block my sister or brother-in-law, instead I decided to just save all of the messages they sent me because I've made the decision to take them to small claims court over this. I don't really need or want the money and have already replaced the destroyed padlock with a much better one, however the kids are not the only ones who need to be taught a lesson. In the end, I hope I put them in enough of a hole that they learn not to screw with me ever again. I also have the full support of my family on this, my parents, aunts, uncles, cousins, etc. They are all supporting me in this because my nephews have stolen from them too. And after banning my nephews from my house, some of them did the same. I am going to push for my nephews to get community service, and the reason why it is not just because it's a good idea, but also because I know that they will hate that the most. Whenever they are made to do any kind of work they don't want to do, they just stand around griping and act like the whole world is against them, so hardly anything ever gets done. Perhaps a few hundred hours of unpaid work will teach them some manners. They've been spoiled far too